Hi everyone, I'm Trevor Olson, Program Manager for Shortcuts in OneLake. Today we'll go over a quick introduction of OneLake Shortcuts and then dive into Fabric and see how to use them. So what are shortcuts and how are they used? Shortcuts are similar to symbolic links. They allow you to create pointers in OneLake that reference data in other storage locations. In OneLake, shortcuts just appear as another folder within the file system. But the data that appears inside the shortcut is physically stored in another location. Let's look at an example. Today, if you have tables in a data warehouse that you want to make available in a lakehouse, you will need to copy the data out of the warehouse. With OneLake, you can simply create a shortcut in the lakehouse pointing to the table in the warehouse. The data will appear in the lakehouse as if it had been physically copied. However, because you didn't copy it, when data is updated in the warehouse, changes are automatically reflected in the lakehouse. Let's look at how else we can use shortcuts. There are two categories of shortcuts. The first are OneLake shortcuts, sometimes referred to as internal shortcuts. These shortcuts can point to other Fabric items, including lakehouses, warehouses, and KQL databases. The second category is external shortcuts. These can point to other external storage providers, including Azure Data Lake Storage Gen 2 and Amazon S3. This allows you to utilize your existing data in Fabric workloads without having to orchestrate data movement or interrupt any of your existing pipelines or processes. Just create a shortcut and immediately start analyzing your data. Shortcuts can be accessed by any workload within Fabric. Create a shortcut in your lakehouse, then analyze your data through a Spark notebook or the SQL endpoint. Open the default data set for your lakehouse and build a Power BI report that directly accesses data through your shortcut. Shortcuts can also be accessed by non-Fabric applications and services. OneLake provides data access through the ADLS Gen 2 DFS APIs and SDK. ADLS-compatible applications such as Databricks and Azure HD Insights can connect to OneLake endpoints and access the data through shortcuts. Because shortcuts just appear as another folder in the lake, everything seamlessly works. Let's jump into Fabric and try it out. I'm going to start with an empty lakehouse. I have raw sales data in ADLS. I'll create a shortcut so I can access that data directly. I right-click on the files directory and say New Shortcut. I choose ADLS Gen 2 Storage. And here I provide the connection details to my ADLS account. I first specify the connection endpoint. It's important to use the DFS endpoint for the storage account. I then choose an existing connection or create a new one. I have the connection name and set the auth. Let's do that. Now I specify the name for my shortcut. In this case, I'll call it sales data. Then I specify the target location within the storage account that I want the shortcut to point to. We start with the container and any subfolder below that. So now, without any data movement, I can select my shortcut and the data just appears. Let's go ahead and process this data. Here I have a notebook that's attached to our lakehouse. The notebook reads the data through the shortcut. Here you can see this shortcut is referenced as a folder within the file path. We can form the data to create a fact table that aligns to our common dimensions, and then write the table back to the lake. Let's go ahead and run this. We can now go back to our lakehouse and see the output. Here you can see the fact table was written to the table section of the lakehouse. But I want to bring in some of our common dimensions from another lakehouse. To do that, I'll create a shortcut. So again, I right-click on the table section, I say New Shortcut, and I select OneLake. Here I choose my common dimensions, choose the table that I want. In this case, dim customer, and select Create. I also want to bring in the product dimension. So again, I'll say New Shortcut, select OneLake, I'll choose my common dimensions, and I'll choose the product dimension. Anytime you bring a shortcut into the table section of the lakehouse, as long as the data is in the Delta format, it'll automatically recognize it as a table and register the metadata. I can now select the shortcut and see the data inside. I can also analyze this data through the SQL endpoint. I can select the mode switcher for the lakehouse and choose SQL endpoint. Here, all three tables appear in the SQL endpoint. We can run queries on the tables and analyze the data. SQL doesn't care if the data is stored locally within OneLake or through a shortcut. Okay, let's now switch to datasets and see how they work with shortcuts. From my lakehouse, I'll select New Power BI dataset. Here, I'll select all three tables, say Confirm. I can now link the tables together and build out my star scheme. I can now create a new report on my dataset. I'll start by looking at revenue by product category. And I'll compare that with revenue by customer. Here I can quickly see my top performing products and my top performing customers side by side. Everything works smoothly and seamlessly, regardless if the data is accessed through OneLake or through a shortcut. OneLake shortcuts allow you to quickly and easily connect to your existing data without having to manage any data movement. They work with all query engines in Fabric, including Spark, SQL, and analysis services. Try shortcuts today in Fabric and let us know what features you want to see next in the comments below. Thanks for watching.